Welcome back, sports fans. It's Maintainer's Garage and I'm Bags. Doctor gave me the A-OK to continue to hurt myself and entertain you in interesting ways in the garage, so here I be. So I got my car back up in the air. We're just going to go over it and do a post-Hpde weekend inspection. And again, your car and you did more hard driving, more hard braking, more hard acceleration, pulled more G's in turns because you were going faster in turns at a more frequent rate and more repetitive rate for longer durations. All that to say is, you beat on your car for a full weekend, you want to look it over again. And it's basically the same kind of inspection you do before the weekend, I do one after. And again, I want my car to always, be there for me. I want it to start. I want it to run right. When I'm going down the highway going to work, I don't want to think about, hey, is that wheel bearing okay? Did I check it? Is something might be loose that I forgot about or didn't check? So I just do this before and after each weekend. Now, I'm not changing any fluids. I'm not doing a brake fluid or any of that. Now I'm going to check levels. I'll check the oil level. I'll check the brake fluid level. I'll check the power steering fluid level. And I check those during the Hpde weekend as well, but I'm checking them again. Again, these are things you can't do too many times. There's no such thing as checking your car or your vehicle for proper operation too much. It's just that easy. So I'm gonna go around, I'm gonna check the wheel bearings, I'm gonna check the tie rod ends, and a few other things, and check torques on bolts, and I'll show you all of that. So we're on the front driver's side wheel. I can't show you the passenger side because of how close it is to my garage. So just assume it's exactly the same and you do the same check. So what you're checking for is any play. So if you grab the wheel at the top, grab the wheel at the bottom, and you're doing that, you should not be able to do a rocking motion. What you're trying to do is a rocking motion. And you're alternating, and there is no play, and that's checking the wheel bearing. The other way to go, and you need to be careful because on a Corvette sometimes the steering wheel never locks because of problems that we can talk about another time. So you're not trying to turn the wheel like that. You're trying to, and again, you can just grab the ridge of the tread, and it's a perfect place to stick your fingers, and you're just trying to see if there's any play, and luckily for me there isn't any. And I didn't say this to start off with, but don't break the torque on these yet, because you do, that'll skew your results. So you want lug nuts tight, lift up the vehicle, and check. Now we'll check the rear tire. You're checking the rear tire as well. Want to make sure the e-brake is off, and if you have a manual transmission, get it out of gear. Being able to rotate kind of makes it easy. If you have an automatic transmission, you can leave it in park. So again, we'll do the opposite. We'll check side to side play is none, which is good. Top to bottom, it's good. And sometimes, as you saw, the wheel moves. You just got to be, just keep playing with it. And if there's movement in there, you should feel it. And you may hear it, but you definitely should feel it. And you want 0. I have 0, so good to go. And again, passenger side, same inspection. Now we can take the lug nuts off. All right, we're going to start on the rear wheel. I've taken the rear wheel off. It's over there. I'm going to do an inspection and clean it, and I'll show you about that later. So what you want to check is you want to check torques and tightness on most of the suspension, every suspension bolt you can put your freaking hands on. All I'll say is it's your job to make sure those torque values are correct. This is the internet age. You can verify sources fairly quickly, and it's your responsibility to make sure what you're using is the correct torque value and make sure it's right. That's all I got to say about that. Nanny police off. So I'm going to check your upper ball joint tightness. I'm going to check the lower ball joint tightness. Your sway bar link, check that, it's 2 spots. Your upper control arm has 2 mounting bolts. You want to check it, and there's bushings inside of there. You just want to look at them, make sure they're not all jacked up. Shock mount has 2 bolts, and a bushing, make sure it's not all jacked up. Tie rod end, check it as well. And some of you will have a cotter pin in your tie rod end, so if your cotter pin is still there, you're okay. On the tie rod, there's an inner and outer. Grab and shake laterally, and then left to right, and then up and down, and the same on the outer. Make sure it's good. And on the Corvette, you know, we got this rear brake duct. There's a bolt here. I mean, it's gonna have a little give, but you just want to make sure it's not flapping in the breeze. You've got cradle bolts back here. You want to check those. Talked about the bottom ball joint. The half shaft, you want to grab and try to move. And anything else am I forgetting? Lower shock mount, huge bolt, check it. Lots of torque. All of this you just want to do your best on, and visual inspection is great, looking at everything, but putting a wrench, and it doesn't even have to be a torque wrench, just put a wrench on it and just kind of make sure it's not loose. Your lower control arms have your eccentrics for your alignment. Be careful on those, because if the shop did it right, they torqued them, so you could easily move them if you grill it. So on the suspension, if your alignment shop's nice enough to let you go in there and mark it with a paint pen when they're done, you can just look and you put a line down the frickin' thing and you can see if it's cattywampus or not right or not straight or moved. So I think that's everything on the rear suspension. So I'm going to do this, check all this stuff, and then move to the front wheel. I'm going to change my brake pads because I put track pads, racing pads on the car for the Hpde weekend. So I'm going to change them back to my street setup. Before I do that, I check all this, each wheel, front and back. I check all the torques, visually inspect everything before I start performing what I'd call maintenance or getting it back to street trim. Check everything first on the wheels and the suspension, and make sure you've got a mechanically sound car. And you know, you can do the underside as well before you start this, because that way you can just say, okay, I've checked that there are no problems. Now I can proceed forward with, you know, whatever you might need to do. So yeah, that's just how I do it. All right, so we're under the car. So again, you've checked the outer ends. Now you're checking the middle, I call it, of your car. And you want to check, you know, these bolts for your sway bar. Same on the other side. And again, your visual inspection is huge here. You just want to look around, make sure there's no leaks or anything, and if anything stands out, look at it. Let me see if I can get a good picture of it. Yeah, right. Yeah, remember that line I was talking about on your suspension bolt? Huh? Just saying. And again, when you're under here, just check everything. Look at everything. Touch everything. Because all of this is important to you. And I try to make sure I get all the bolts on the outside of the car that I can reach from the wheel wells before I come under the car. And more often than not, this is more visual than, you know, bolts, but hey, never hurts. All right, we're on to the front, and I forgot to mention it on the rear. You want to make sure the brake caliper mounting bolts and where they mount to the suspension, and then obviously the caliper bolts themselves are all tight. So, and again, we're on the driver's side, passenger side, same. So we'll start at the top. So you've got your upper control arm mounting bolts. Just want to make sure they're good. And if I remember off the top of my head, I think on the Corvette, I believe they're 53 foot-pounds. I might be off on that. Check it. The upper shock mounting point and the bushing here, and then the bushing up top. And this was like 43 foot-pounds, give or take. Again, check. So, and then again, the bushings on the aft upper control arm and those two bolts. Then you have the upper ball joint, obviously the brake caliper and hat, the steering linkage, the sway bar linkage, the lower control arm, and then the lower shock mount. And again, when you check the lower control arm, much like the rear, that's where your eccentric is for your alignment. So don't get on there and try to pull 100 foot-pounds of torque. You just want to make sure, push. If you get some resistance, you're there, you're done. Again, much like the back that I showed you on my small camera, I've got blue lines, so I can do a real quick, I just give a little effort, look at that blue line. Blue lines match up. So it's that simple. And I think that's it on the front. I maybe have forgotten something, but yeah. So now we're at the under the car on the front. You're looking at the AC condenser, and on C5s and C6 the radiators are tilted back like this, and that's where the air comes and scoops up from the front. This always gets debris in it, so you just want to take your hand and wipe it off. And if you've got an air compressor, you can get a little air compressor and then a nozzle, and then you can actually shoot air from the backside of the radiator and shoot this out. But otherwise, you just grab it, or take your hand, just be real gentle of the fins, and just wipe all this stuff off. And again, that'll just help keep your engine cool and keep everything okay. And again, down here, we're just looking. You know, obviously I just did the dampener, so that looks okay. The belts look okay. There's no fluid that I can see. Everything looks okay. I've checked all the bolts. There's only the motor mounts are the bolts I check, and then the leaf spring mounts, and those are good. So everything is good to go under here, and now we can check the wheels. All right, so I've cleaned the wheel up, and I've got them off the car. Obviously, not on the car, but I cleaned them up again, and now I'm just doing an inspection. And I want to check all of this, each spoke, for any cracks. There might be a hairline crack, and then just check the barrel, and I think we're okay. Again, some of this stuff even won't come off until you give it a really good scrub with a brush. I just wanted to clean it off to make sure that, hey, there's nothing defective about it, there's nothing broken with it, because yeah, this is where everything happens. You can't turn, stop, or accelerate if your wheel's effed up. So always make sure after a track weekend you check your wheels very well, because again, you're putting more stress on there than normal day-to-day driving, and even hard, street driving. And for the astute of you out there, yes, these are all-season tires. Yes, I did a track day on all-season tires. Told you, mechanically sound car is all you need. So yeah, I think we're good to go, and I'll check the rest of them, but I just wanted to show you one and how I look at it. So obviously put the wheels back on, car's back on the ground, lug nuts torqued, and I am done with my post Hpde weekend inspection. Everything checked out good, put my hands on everything, checked all the nuts and bolts, no leaks. Everything I could physically look at, touch, and check is A-okay. So that's how I do it. If you do it differently, hey, put it down in the comment section so we can talk about it. Hey, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or doing something you're doing better. Let me know about it. Hey, thanks for watching Maintainer's Garage. Have a great day.